This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Welcome to episode 132 of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with your host, David Charlton. Today, I'm going to be talking about two topics which are close to my heart and I'm very, very passionate and interested in. We've got golf and we've got business. We could also throw a third one in there where we look at mindset, naturally mental toughness, and a fourth where we look at sport in general. What we're looking at here is the lessons learned from business to golf or sport and vice versa. We also look at mental toughness in a business setting and a golf setting, as well as a whole lot more, where Kevin Stansfield, a well-respected business coach, goes on to share a number of different tips and insights into both domains. Hi, Kevin. Would you like to explain to the listeners a little bit about your background and your passion for golf and for business coaching?
Yeah. So, my background, sort of the two combined quite nicely. When I was about 11, 12, my father was employed. He was a finance director of a sort of reasonably big company in our local town. He decided that he wanted to be a businessman, and actually he bought a business from a man in a pub, as you do. So he acquired a sign company, gave up all the safety security of a well-paid job, 25 days holiday a year, pensions, jacked all that in to risk it all on running his own business because he saw that as giving him that future. And I think it must have been a year or two after doing that, he realised that business people like him played golf. So he joined the local golf club. So it was a country club down in Dover in Kent. And, I was into my sport sort of back then, and he sort of, got me to go along. We never played before. We both had lessons, and, started sort of playing. And that was, you forget when you're that sort of looking back how long time frames are. I think it was about 6 months we did that. And then he did his back in, so he couldn't play. So we had another 6 months or so at the golf club, and then stopped his membership. And so that was the end of my golf, really. And I never got into it big time. I played with a friend of mine, and we went out occasionally. And golf is so bloody frustrating that you sort of, there was part of me that said, I don't like this game at all. It's too frustrating. And then for the next 30 years or so, I played once in a while with some mates that got into it, the odd stag sort of do. So and I played competitive tennis. So I've got good hand-eye coordination. So sort of did that for a number of years. So, I had that sort of that business knowledge from my parents running businesses. I became a chartered accountant. I went into practice, then went into industry, ended up being the freelance finance director for a number of fast growth companies and built them to multi-million-pound businesses. Once they got to that big, for me, it got a bit boring. So I decided to take a bit of a career break and I helped build these businesses, but I didn't really know what I'd done. So it's a bit like the golfer that goes round, never had a lesson and is shooting sort of, single figures, but really going, I don't really know why I'm able to play this well. So I went back to university, did my MBA to actually try and learn how to do it. And coming out of that, I then bumped into Action Coach, which is the world's largest business coaching organization. And they really did have a model. They really did have the right, you do this. And if you do all these things, then you can actually build a successful business. And I suppose that's a bit like a golfer who then wants to become a golf pro would go to the sort of the PGA, and there's a set way to learn how to play golf. The reality, though, is there might be a set way, but everyone does it slightly differently. And that's the skill set that I've built up over the last 17 years of understanding there's a set way of playing the game of business, but the way individuals play it is all slightly different. And you've got to play with that person's strengths rather than fit them into a box. And then if you try and do that, they get fed up with it. And the results now, as you know, in sort of, in psychology and training, is it never works. You've got to take that person. They have to develop their own way of doing certain things. And that was really how, I got into golf and how I got into business. So I think that answers your question.
Right. Yeah. No, fascinating. Yeah. I can take this off a range of different angles. I'm going to start with the part of mental toughness would be is risk orientation. So in effect, taking on a challenge there, and essentially what you've done is take a risk in some ways, isn't it? To go back to studying to find out about the how businesses actually work. So is an element of, in your mind, of running a successful business as being like inquisitive and trying to be more aware of what's going on?
Yeah, I think, and this is where the similarities in sport comes, that you look at every successful sports person, is that there came a time where they had to commit to something and they had to make a decision. It's not what you focus on, it's what you don't focus on. So if you're going to be, a professional footballer as a kid, you've got to leave all the other sports behind, because the time it takes to actually be brilliant at that one thing, means you can't do the other things. Okay, later in life, when you're a professional, you're actually, in your contract, you're not allowed to do certain things. But the same within business is you have to make those decisions to sort of leave stuff behind to push yourself to the next level. So I did that, I had a accountancy job. I was in a practice. My goal was always to become a partner in an accountancy practice. That's, for most accountants, is the pinnacle. And I was 28 years old, and I was there with the paperwork to sign to become a partner in a business. And I looked at it and thought, do I really want this? Is this really where I see myself in the next 20 years? And that's when I jumped into industry, and I became the FD of one of my clients, and I had a great time. We built that to 4 million turnover in about 4 years. So, and then the next jump was actually forced upon me, because that business then virtually went bust overnight, and I didn't have a job. So then it was a case of, right, well, now I've got to do something, not because I want to do it, but because I have to do it. And so I then got involved with another company, and I became a freelance finance director. So working for myself, but for a number of people. And we find that in business, that the majority of people who are in business today are not there because that was their dream. It was because things around them contrived to them actually being there. Some are made redundant, some end up working for idiot bosses and, get fed up with that and feel that they're unemployable. So there's generally, if they look back, there's some pivotal thing that actually turned them from becoming, going down the employment route into, being a business owner and running their own business.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, actually. When I look back, I had a big life event happen to me. My wife had got diagnosed with cancer. She sadly then passed away.
Right.
And then the role I was in at the time, like yourself, I got made redundant. And it was a case of, well, stick or twist. Do I continue in a similar profession or go take the brave, crazy decision, potentially?
Brave or stupid. It's only the end result that decides the difference between the two.
Definitely. So yeah, I went for that decision, and yeah, I'm very pleased I did. Anyway, so in terms of mental toughness, what would your definition of mental toughness be? A, on the golf course, or you mentioned about tennis there, and then B, in business terms?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to use the word resilience, mental toughness, resilience. And that's one thing that I think they've proven that successful people have that over and above unsuccessful people. So what is it that gives certain people that resilience to carry on. And I think sometimes it's just bloody-mindedness. Yeah. The common factor I see is clarity of the goal. If you've got clarity of where you want to be, you've got resilience. People who don't have clarity of the goal, or the goal is a bit wishy-washy and, well, I want that, but I don't really want it, then it's always easier to give up than it is to push through. And you'll see that from any walk of life, people who have lost limbs in the war, their belief in where they want to be and the person they want to become and what they want to achieve is so great that it drives them through. So I have a little formula, which I call the formula for life success, which is BE times do, DO, equals have. So if you want to be successful at anything, you've got to have those three things. Who do I need to be? My internal thoughts, knowledge, and skills. Do is my actions, so my physical activity. What am I prepared to actually do? And have is, what do I want to have? So if I said to you, you've got to have all those three to be successful, but which of those three is the most important in order for success to happen? Out of those three things, which one would it be? The be, the do, or the have?
Yeah, it's got to be the have, hasn't it?
It's the have. Now most people, when I ask that, will say, "Oh, it's the do." You've got to do stuff, and those tend to be the busy fools. That they jump on the hamster wheel and think doing more is actually going to get them to where they want to go. The ones that choose the be are generally the ones that like to learn, and they read and they'll go on courses and they'll absorb all this knowledge, but they don't actually do what it takes. The people that have got the have, and they've got such clarity and desire to have what they want to have, that they then be what they need to be and do what they need to do. And if you look at that in any sport, you see the people at the top, the Roger Federers, the Djokovic's, it's a real new sort of generation of people that have won so much that they have still got the drive to actually achieve it. And I don't know if you picked up at Wimbledon, they interviewed Kyrgios before, and they were saying, so what's driving you? Do you really want to win? Yeah, I really want to win Wimbledon, but I think once I've won it once, that'll be it.
Yeah, I did hear that.
And as soon as he said that, I thought, game over. You're never going to beat Djokovic with that mental attitude.
Yeah.
Never, ever. Now, it has happened. James Hunt managed to win, and he only ever wanted to win one world championship. But for those guys, the Djokovic's, even Andy Murray, going through that surgery and coming out and still having that desire and therefore resilience to overcome, to achieve, it's because it doesn't matter what the goal is, they've got this belief and this clarity of what it is for them.
It's really interesting you say that, because I notice with a number of clients and just a lot of sports people in general, how actually just taking the time to sit down and map out your goals, how you're going to get there, the resources, the setbacks that you might come across, and then have a bit of a plan B, if you like. They don't go there. But I suppose it's the same for the business owner in some cases, in lots of cases as well, where they get into do mood.
Yep. And again, go back to your point there of, why people get into business in the first place. A lot of people get into business because they don't want to be unemployed. They don't want to be poor. They don't want to, be homeless. They don't want to work for somebody else. So they create a business that gives them all of those things. But that business is never going to be big enough, to achieve the goals that somebody like Richard Branson or Elon Musk or those guys want far more than that. And therefore, they're able to build much bigger businesses that provide that for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the key things. I was asked the other day, what if there was one thing you would tell a prospective business owner? I'd be clear, what is it you want out of the business? Because your business will provide that. The danger is you think too small and it will provide you small stuff rather than thinking big and going, do you know what? I want all of that. You still got to do the be and the do. You're not going to get it by sitting on your ass doing nothing. or doing what you've always done. But if you don't have the have, then you'll never achieve it.
Interesting. And one of the other things I picked up on a little bit earlier was, I suppose, being able to say no to certain things that actually distract you is very important. Yeah. Do you want to just elaborate a little bit more on that?
I mean, it, obviously the sport one's quite easy because, if I wanted to be a professional golfer, I'd have to dedicate my life to golf. And you see the guys now, the best of the best. What do they do for the 2 hours before they tee off? Practice.
Exactly.
I go out and play golf with my mates. What do we do the 2 hours before practice? I mean, some of them even have a beer before they go out and play. We might have a warm up in the net if we're lucky and a putt on the putting green. And that's the difference between, what I would say is the master, somebody who wants to master something, and the sort of the social player who just, it's not the be all end all of their life. They do it because they like doing it. It's a distraction from the day to day.
Yeah, and I would say the key thing for especially the golfer, well, the professional golfer, they do actually have quite a lot of time, and they're running their own business, if you like, and that can be quite overwhelming. I've got 6 hours ahead of me to practice, but actually, what do I practice? It's very easy to procrastinate in that way.
Yeah.
So how do you help the business owner who falls into that mode where they get overwhelmed and procrastinate?
Well, in a way, the same way as a professional golfer does. Imagine that professional golfer turning up, 2 hours before he tees off with no plan of what he's practicing. That's why their coach will go with them and say, right, we're gonna practice this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. I'm going to give you the feedback that you need in order to understand how your game is today, because your game changes every day. There's no golfer out there that is perfect every day. You play with what you've got, and you try and be the best with what you've got on the day.
Yeah.
So for me, and when a client comes to me and says, "Look, I want some help to get me from A to B," the first thing is I've got to know what B is. Where are we going to go with this? And as I said, most people in business don't know where they're going to go with their business, or they think too small. So I have to stretch that. And then the second bit is, okay, if we're going to go there, what do you actually need to do? And in the book, I look at golf and say, look, golf is actually 14 games in one. Okay, you've got the driving game, you've got the wood game, you've got the long iron game, you've got the short iron game, the mid iron game, you've got the chipping game, you've got the putting game, you've got the bunker game, you've got all of these tools. In football, you've got one football and a foot. In tennis, you've got a racket and a ball. In golf, you've got 14 things you've got to master. And that's like a musician, playing every single instrument in the band.
Yeah, and I suppose that takes us to expectations and how people's expectations of themselves can be very much out of sync. Certainly with golfers. I'm saying golfers, but across most sports and in business as well.
Yeah, and I think in golf you do get this, and you'd have seen this, and everyone knows the guy down or gal down the golf club who thinks they're better than they actually are. And there's some very dodgy handicaps as well when you play in competitions. It's almost the reverse, isn't it? My handicap is worse than I actually am, but I think I'm better than I am. So it's like the gap between how I think I am and my handicap is often quite massive. But what happens in golf is you tend to find people will end up playing with people like themselves. So if you're an 18 handicapper, the people that you play golf with will generally be around plus or minus 10% of your handicap. Okay, might be a little bit wider because, there's not much difference between an 18 and a 12 handicapper really. But you won't really find 18 handicappers, 20 handicappers going out playing with scratch handicappers.
Yeah.
Okay. Same is true as in business. Yeah. Business people will tend to associate with people of a similar level to where they are because they relate to them. You won't find somebody that runs a, 5 employees, $500,000 turnover business, being close to somebody who's running a £50 million business.
So what's the key message there then for people?
So it sort of comes back to you've got to be aspiring to hang around the people you want to be like. So if you're I'm a 9 handicapper. I love going out playing with scratch handicappers. Okay, it's scary because I can't mess up. I feel like I can't mess up. If I do a bad shot, they're going to think I'm an idiot. But whenever I play with them or against them, because I love my competitive sport, I always find my game goes up. So I found that in tennis. When I played against people worse than me, my tennis dropped. And when I played people who were better than me, my tennis went up. I'd still lose, but I could lose just as easily to somebody better than me as I could to somebody that was worse than me, because it would my game would be swayed either way.
Yeah.
So in business, if you want to be better than where you are, associate with people of where you are. So I all of my clients get together on a regular basis. I encourage them to talk to each other, learn from each other, because there's always somebody 1 or 2 rungs higher than where you are. But even the guys at the big top, I always say, look, you've still got a lot to learn from the small guy, because they're going through things on a lot quicker basis than you are. And sometimes you lose sight of those when you're running a big business, and actually learning from those people that are going through it, because your team are going through it, that you can actually pick up a lot from them as well. So you can still learn, but even those guys, you still got to be associating with people at a higher level. So I'll encourage them. I've got one at the moment. I'm encouraging to go and to talk to private equity people, people that have built multi-million pounds businesses and sold them. Go and learn from them, because they're the people that are going to teach you the skills you need to play at that level.
Yeah, it's very true. I did a workshop this morning with an Australian cricket team with a bunch of coaches, and we were having this conversation. It doesn't matter about your expertise, where you are on your journey. You can always learn something.
Yeah,
as long as you're open to learning. That's certainly one of the big keys. Earlier as well, you touched on when you're working with clients, you help them recognize what their strengths are, and then ensure that they go to play with their strengths. Yeah. Do you want to just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so it's a little bit, golf is not an easy one for the analogy then, because, if you're a golfer, you're stuck. You've got to play every instrument. But if you're, let's take it because business, golf is generally it's an individual pursuit. Okay, the Ryder Cup's slightly different, but it's an individual pursuit. Business is a team game, so it's a little bit more like football. So if you use football as an analogy, when kids start playing football, imagine that recreation, jumpers for goalposts. Describe to me what happens on the pitch when the ball goes onto the pitch with both sides of the players. Where do they tend to go?
So the players naturally are going to.
These are young kids. They only just started to play.
Young
football.
Kids, all right. So young kids all go straight for the ball.
Everyone goes for the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So everyone's fighting over the ball. Everyone's a striker, a defender, a midfielder. There's no structure. It's a bit of a sort of bit chaotic. Okay.
At least, yeah.
That's what small business is like.
It's
okay.
True,
Jumpers for goalposts. The business owner's there running around. He's doing the sales, the marketing. It's of an evening, he's doing the finance. It's recruiting people. It's delivering the service. It's dealing with customer complaints. Take it into the music side again. It's the one-man band. With the cymbals on his arms and tambourine and blowing the thing. He makes the music. But it's not great, is it?
Yeah, it feels like I've been there, worn that T-shirt. Thankfully, I now delegate quite a lot out. But you feel like you're walking in treacle, and a lot of your days on a lot of fun. Put it that way.
Yeah, and maybe it's like a plumber. The plumber started plumbing because he enjoyed plumbing, but now he's recruiting people, disciplining people. He's doing accounts of an evening. He's having to go and get more business. So the skill that they have is not always the thing that they're actually doing and enjoy doing. So part of that transition is for me, is to understand what the strengths of that person are. Because, even if they're, very technical and their strength isn't in business, they'll generally have some strengths. It might be the numbers. They really understand numbers. It might be the fact that they're very interpersonal. So sales is very good for them. They might be a great team leader, and actually it's about the leadership and management of people. So you're trying to find those skill sets that they have. And then, as you rightly said, the things that they don't enjoy doing or not good at, bring other people in to do that. So delegate as much as possible, subcontract it out, employ people, get yourself out of the instruments that you just don't enjoy playing. Because again, if you've got clarity of the goal, the goal of a business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Up until that point, you've got a job. Okay, you have to go to work. You have to do the work. A business that works without you, you won't be playing any of the instruments. You are the conductor at that point. You're the manager sitting on the side of the pitch, orchestrating what goes on, not the player. So eventually you won't be doing anything anyway. So it doesn't matter what you let go of first, because eventually you're going to let go of everything. And that's where a lot of the technical-minded business owners struggle, is because they see themselves as the business. The plumber is the business, the accountant is the business. I can't let go because I'm the only one that can do this as well as anyone else. But that's like the player. You remember in the 80s, everyone was good player managers? Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous. You're either a player playing well, or you're a manager managing well. Those two, you can't do both.
Yeah.
And the same within business is you can get away with it for a bit. And in a small business, you have to go through that process. But that's not where you're aiming to be in 5 years' time. You want to be, the manager or the conductor of the orchestra, not the player with the bagpipes.
Yeah, no, I think as well, psychologically, if you're spending a lot of time doing things that you don't particularly enjoy, then it can zap your motivation and your willpower, and probably it can impact on your well-being as well if you spend too much time there. Likewise, I suppose I see it where we go back to golf there. The professional golfer who doesn't plan their practice very well and spends time in areas really that they shouldn't be. Equally it can drain them, and they're ineffective, and then they can't produce the results on the golf course.
Yeah, and it is hard. If you're not very good at chipping, and you see people that have got a little chip to do, and they'll do anything to avoid chipping. If you're not very good at it, it's hard to make yourself go and practice chipping because you're rubbish at it. And that psychological thing of, well, I'm rubbish at it, therefore I'll avoid it, because fundamentally we're programmed to avoid pain. We've got a reptilian brain that doesn't want us in pain, so it'll do what it takes to avoid it. So that's why you need a coach, because the coach is the person that says, right, your chipping is crap. We are going to sit here for an hour and we're going to just practice chipping.
Yeah.
But I need to give you some tips, some ideas, because if I don't, you're just going to practice the bad stuff and you're going to get worse at it.
So the bad habits. And then likewise as well, you can find with some golfers that they end up practicing all of the stuff they need to get better at, like all of the bad stuff, and they don't spend much time at all doing the stuff they're good at. They just expect that's going to happen. So certainly setting some clear goals, taking some steps back is the way forward. And as you say, making sure your coach is involved in that process. So I've really enjoyed the conversation. I reckon we could go on and on and on with this one quite easily. What I'd like you to do though, could you summarize, what we've spoken about to the listeners with 3 key takeaways?
I think the 3 key takeaways really is that be, do, have. I use it so many times. And if there's one thing you take away from this is, be clear what you have is in every aspect of your life. In with your family, with business, with sport, and be honest with yourself. What is it that I want from this game that I'm playing? And if you treat life as a game, in every aspect, then every game you play should be fun. So from a business point of view, what is it I really want from this business? If it's from golf, what is it I want from golf? If it's the family, what is it I want from family? Okay, you've got to be clear what that is, and that you put, and it will change through your life. What you want at the age of 22 is not what you want at the age of 52. So you've got to keep going back to that on a regular basis and going, am I in alignment with what I want to have? And if you're not sure what it is, then you've got to go and talk to people, talk to your family, talk to friends, get a coach, a life coach, to actually help you understand what it is you want. Because, I didn't get this until I was 38 years old, and if I'd known what I knew at 38 when I was 18, I would have done a lot of things differently. And that's the one thing that I wish, my parents had, they gave me a lot of insights of what I should do, but they didn't know that. So they weren't in a position to teach me that. So that the have is, I would say, is number one. Once you've got that, then what do I need to do to be the best at that I can be? And if you really believe in the have, then you'll believe in the be. So for me, I love my golf. I really want to be, my first goal was to become single figures, which I've managed. I'm looking at, I'd love to be scratch, but then I have to look at every aspect of my life and go, am I prepared to give up what it will take to be scratch golfer? And the answer to that is probably no. I've seen what it takes to be single figures. And so there comes a bit of realistic goals. So my goal at the moment is 6 or 7. I think that to me, for where I am, I'd be happy with that. And then, okay, once you've got that, what do you need to know? What knowledge, skills do you need? And then you put a plan together and says, right, this is what I need to do to actually achieve it. So I see my coach, once a month, we work on bits. If I really wanted to get to scratch, and I had to do it by a certain time, I'd need to be seeing him once a week. So there's an element of compromise in life that you have to make. And I enjoy other things outside of golf. So I have to sort of make some of those compromises.
Yeah, no, I like that little process you've talked through. As you say, but I think by going through that process, doing it on a regular basis, then when you are faced with setbacks and obstacles, you're going to be in a position where you can overcome them. You won't just keep repeating the same mistakes time and time again. Yeah.
Obstacles are only life's test to say how much do you want it. And if it was, and the big thing for this, and I akin it to climbing Mount Everest. Why the hell would anybody want to climb Mount Everest? It's absolutely ridiculous idea. It's just not on my radar whatsoever. But there are some idiots that want to climb Mount Everest. So imagine that was your goal, and you've done what it takes. You've been who you need to be. You do what you need to do, and you attain climbing to Mount Everest. And you sit on top of Mount Everest, and you look around. You survey the world beneath your feet, and you go, "I have achieved." 5 minutes later, what are you thinking?
That's blooming hard work.
Yeah. What's next? What do I do now? Okay, you've got to get down. So that's more people die coming down than they do going up. And I think part of that is because you switch off, because I've achieved my goal and I haven't. So actually, it's the success is getting home safely and not dying on the way back. But even once you're back down, then you're sitting there going, well, what is there with life now? Because the key to life and happiness and contentment is not the attainment of the goal. It's the process of getting to the goal. That's where life is. That's where the enjoyment is. Once you've won the medal, once you've climbed Mount Everest, once you've got your scratch round, once you've won the Masters, you've got to replace it with something else. And that's why the likes of Djokovic, Nadal, etc., are able to do what they do, because they've actually said, once I've achieved that, that's fine, but what's next? So they keep setting the next goal. So for them, it was like, we want to win 20 Grand Slams. I want to beat Nadal. I want to beat Federer. Why you've got that element of desire and drive and the have, then you keep going. You have a purpose. As soon as you lose that, your purpose goes, that's when, I think you lose a little bit of the spark with life then.
And that hunger. I can most definitely see that. No doubt about it. So So yeah, Kevin, it's been fascinating talking to you. Whereabouts can the listeners find you if they want to ask you any questions? And obviously, feel free to direct them to your book as well.
Yeah, please. The easiest way is on LinkedIn. So if you just type Kevin Stansfield on LinkedIn, I don't think there's many of us on there, and you'll see me from Action Coach and the books. The books are all both on Amazon. So I've written 3. One's yet to be sort of fully released, but I've got 2 main books. One is called The Big Dipper, which is about how to survive the roller coaster ride of business ownership. So that's based on my father's story of giving up a good job, buying a business, growing it, then hitting the buffers, and that sort of up and down that every business owner goes through. And then the other book is called The Great Game, so how lessons from the great game of business can help you win the equally great game of the great game of golf can help you win the great game of business. And both of those are on Amazon. So just go on Amazon, type my name in, and you'll see the books come up. And the Big Dipper is also on audio as well. So if you like listening to your books, then you can get the Big Dipper on audio. The Great Game isn't it, but it's only a small book. I call it good toilet reading. You can get it and put it by the toilet, and after a few visits, you've read the book. And if you don't like it, you can always use the pages for other purposes. But I'm sure you will like it.
Yeah, I'll put some links there into the show notes to hopefully off the back of this you'll get a few sales there.
yeah. So please, I think reading for me, the more you learn, the more you earn. So people who are open-minded and like to listen to books or read books, is feeding that bee. But then again, you've got to then put what you learn into practice and the do, and that's where most people then struggle, which is why they then people like yourself and me to help them get that knowledge and actually put it into practice. So, because of Zoom, my coaching is all online now. So I can coach anywhere in the world, what clients around the world now. So more than happy if people reach out to help them, even if it's just with setting a plan, sort of setting some goals and putting a plan together. But for the ones that really want to get there with the easiest, then the ongoing coaching programs really help them to give them the accountability, support and focus that they need.
Yeah, no, it's such an important thing, the accountability side of things. Well, yeah, a big thank you for your time today, Kevin.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me on, David. It's good. That's the beauty of LinkedIn, is reaching out and finding people on similar journeys that we can both help each other. So it's been a pleasure.
So again, a big thank you there to Kevin for his wisdom there. I found it really, really enjoyable, and it certainly reminded me about a few things that I can do to get better as a business owner and entrepreneur. One thing I'd like to go back to is the have, as Kevin mentioned. So he mentioned how really successful business owners are very clear in what it is that they want out of their business. So I'd like you just to question whether you're a coach, an athlete, a business owner, or a sports psychologist. What is it that you want out of the thing that you actually do? It's really, really important. So go on, give it a moment or a minute or two and really think about that. Even get a pen and paper out and make some notes. It's going to help you moving forwards, which is essentially what this podcast is all about, trying to make a positive difference. And if you'd like to join me in the Sports Psychology Hub, a Facebook group I've got, you'll find more wisdom, more tips, and a nice supportive network there who might be able to help you forward too. The link is in the show notes. Have a fantastic week ahead. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams. Or if if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.